Hello and good day. Welcome to the Super Good Camping Podcast. My name is Pamela.
I'm Tim.
And we are from supergoodcamping.com. We're here because we're on a mission to inspire other people to get outside and enjoy camping adventures such as we have as a family. Today's guest is a bit different for us in a good way. Have you ever thought I gotta pack and lug all this gear to the site, spend ages setting it up, do it all again on the way out? If so, today's guest may just have a solution for you. An easier, more convenient, less lugging way to get outside and get connected with nature. Please welcome Chris Mahoney, the president of Go RVing Canada.
Hey guys,
welcome.
Thanks you.
For coming by.
I'm so happy to be here.
Awesome.
I'm a big fan.
Excellent. Thank you.
Well, I think you've planted a bit of a seed for us. So
I'm not selling any RVs today. We're just here to have a good time and chat. So
so you're not in the business of selling RVs either, from what
No, that's the great thing is, Go RVing. It's a really cool organization. We're not for profit. We've been around for over 25 years. We're set up by the manufacturers and the RV dealers and campgrounds to basically promote the RV lifestyle. So, we're completely brand agnostic. We don't sell units. We don't sell a particular brand. We just sell an idea, which is a lot of fun. I'm not going to lie. It's a wild ride. It's a ton of fun.
And you're an RVer yourself, I assume.
I am. Yeah. My first RV experience was when I moved to Canada after university in my early 20s. I won't tell you how long ago that was, but drove across the country in a RV, a 32-foot Class C with 3 buddies. And 3 weeks later, it was a little bit of a stinky affair, but we had a blast, lots of great memories. And that kind of got me hooked in there. And my wife and I own a Airstream right now. So,
oh, cool.
Yeah.
That should be a must-do for everybody, shouldn't it?
Like owning an Airstream?
No.
Driving
across the country. Driving across the country.
Yeah,
I think adventure that is.
It feels like a Canadian rite of passage, right? Yeah. I mean, it's like, the best way to see it.
Yeah. Driving through the Rockies is a pretty amazing deal just on its own. There's some very flat places that not so much fun, but
yeah. It definitely gets a bit gnarly after the prairies. And if you're driving a 32-footer for the first time, it can be a little nail biting, but it's remarkable. It's actually one of the things about RVing that one of the myths, and I'm sure we'll talk about that today, but it's like the drivability factor. They're actually a lot easier to drive than most people realize.
Well, you don't need a special license or anything to drive an RV, I assume.
No. So if you have $1 million or $500,000 and you got a Class A motorhome like the movie stars, then for sure you need a Z class license for the air brake ones. But no, 99% for us, for the rest of us, mere mortals, no, it's just a regular license.
Cool. And I'm sure, I mean, being of a certain age, back when they were like beige with gold stripes on them and stuff like that, and noisy clunkers, and I see them out there now that they're so much quieter. They look so much more efficient than they used to be. They have so many more amenities on them, if you choose to.
Yeah, I mean, like anything else, it's definitely evolved. I've been doing this for over 13 years now, and definitely in that time, I've seen some serious tech leap forwards, both in like efficiency, obviously with, EVs have been huge for cars, and RVs are behind that because of mostly because of like distance and timing like that. But there are electronic RVs coming, and that's part of it. But I think more just like you said, the amenities, just the tech that's going on inside and the efficiencies they find inside. Plus, the manufacturers have just kind of figured out the floor plans. Like, it's amazing what they're doing with even the Class Bs, which we classify as the vans. It's incredible what they fit inside these Sprinter vans. I'm just like shocked every time. They're just finding new and remarkable ways to build closets and bathrooms, and there's a bed you didn't know that was there, et cetera, et cetera. So it's kind of cool.
Yeah, and a slide out, washing basin kitchen thing that you can work on your barbecue out back. Like, it's just, it is. That is mind-boggling stuff.
Aren't those decks off the back crazy? It's like you put your barbecue off the back, and then then your ATVs come out, and now you're in the outdoors.
Exactly. So for my money, I mean, at least in part, the word lugging plays largely into it, because the stuff's you've loaded it up and away you go. You don't have to do it over and over and over and over. So seems to me you've got the opportunity to get into nature, A, more quickly, B, potentially more often, just because of the lack of prep and stuff that you have to do.
Yeah, I think that's definitely the case. I mean, look, like it's interesting. So just to throw a stat out there in terms of RVing in Canada, like 14% of Canadian households own an RV. So that's what we're talking about, like 2 million units. It's like this is a seriously big pastime for Canadians, and it's, I think, especially given recent circumstances, it's only increasing. But the reason why I raised that, Tim, is because of those 14%, you're not going to get anyone RVing that doesn't have a propensity to the outdoors. That's what I've always said. So you're going to start somewhere in it. And for most people, it is tent camping. And, I'm still somewhat of a purist. I still love to go and get in a tent, by the way. There's nothing absolutely, I think that's a perfectly fine thing to do. But in terms of going away with the family, and as we speak about lugging, yeah, I think that this is the solution. It's like, you've got all the creature comforts from home. You've got all the toys for the kids. You've got the food, that everybody loves. And it's all kind of packed up there. And you know what? It just makes your life a little bit easier. And therefore, to your point, being able to do maybe a little bit more often because of that ease. So yeah, I think there's a place for both, but I think that's for me, that's the use case for most people that are RVing now.
Yeah, so it's not just the retirees that are getting themselves.
It's not. It's I was saying I've been doing this for 13 years. It's funny how I've seen the stat change. Like 65% of RVers are now under the age of 55. So that should tell you. And I think we see it through our channels on Go RVing and through all the Instagram and things like that, and the content creators that we work with. It's definitely become cooler and more youthful. I think that manufacturers have responded with, like we had tent trailers, which was sort of your entry level coming in from, as we were talking about tent camping. And then I think now you have teardrops and all these sort of like off-road kind of little trailers that people are taking with them. And that's a whole new market that has come out for the 30-something-year-olds that can kind of just sort of entry level in there.
Yeah, well, obviously we have a lot of friends in the camping community, and that's certainly a trend I've noticed amongst the folks that I know, is that more and more of them are getting into what they call overlanding, which is the sort of 4x4 drag the super cool camper into, that has you can put out some giant awning on it, and all the things that pull out, do the barbecue in the back, all that sort of jazz. It's but you can still do it away from everybody. Like you're not even in a front country situation, at Algonquin or wherever. Not that it doesn't work there. It's just you can lug it down a logging road or whatever and veer off to the left somewhere by a nice little small little lake and do some fishing for a weekend or whatever. Yeah,
I think there's definitely that call to try and for some people, it is that, as we talked about, the ease of use. It's like, okay, we got the weekend with the kids. We need to get out into nature. Let's make this as easy as possible. Pack everything up, and we go to, XY campsite that we've been to before, and we know we can get in, and we like site number 9, and it's by the water, blah blah blah. But then there's the sort of outdoor adventurer, which is the more youthful, that has a bit more time, and maybe they are looking to more for those unique experiences and that unique content or whatever it might be to fulfill. And I think that's something that we've seen grow significantly and has helped grow this market and what has frankly made a lot of the content look cooler and in that regard. So yeah, it's really neat.
Yeah. So of the places like where you're dragging your RV to, might be a provincial park. It might be like a campground of some sort. But where are other places where you might take your RV or park your RV?
Yeah, I mean, so in Canada, we are a little bit more regulated, let's say, than the US. So in the US, actually, the answer would be anywhere because they're allowed to boondock, which means literally, for those of you who don't know, pull over on the side of the road and camp wherever you want. I'm sure, other than maybe like a highway or something like that. But in Canada, we are a bit more regulated. It does have to be sort of like a provincial park or a campground or national park, etc. But it can be on private land, and some people are doing that. You've seen things like harvest hosts, for example, that do things in wineries and so on and so forth. And then there are parking lots available. Like if you're going through a city and you're like, oh man, we're not going to make the campground tonight, or we need to pause. There are areas where you are allowed to park in various parking lots, like in shopping malls and Walmarts and things like that. Obviously not ideal, but if you're in transit, then why not? I mean, some people like to go further afield. Like we said, Canada's a giant mosaic, and sometimes it does, you can't get there in just the one push. So you got to take a couple. But look, I mean, with over 4,000 campgrounds in Canada, we're spoiled for choice.
Yes, we are. Another thought would be that, it's throwing 4 people in the car out in the trailer, you get, your siblings to do the same thing with their kids, mom and dad, pretty easy to put together a group camp.
Oh, totally.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that community is probably, like, for me, that was the thing that when I first started RVing, it was kind of like, I sort of pulled into my site, and I think the people next door could tell I had no freaking clue what I was doing, because, they were instantly coming out with all the gear and helping me out with like leveling my unit and everything like that. But no, I think community or close family, and to be able to travel together and, and sort of somewhat of a pack, if you will. Yeah, totally. Like, it's really hard to do that at a cottage, by the way. You can only fit so many people in, and so many people, beds and bunks and whatever. Whereas when you're camping, you have all the outdoors and, all the natural space. So I think we see that a lot. I think it's definitely a great thing to encourage and see.
Well, yeah. And I think, for me, it's the comfort level suits everybody. I'm happy in a tent in the backcountry smelling like nobody's been near me for 7 days, which is fine. I don't think my parents would be so cool about doing the same thing. So if I can get them out, right, or my sisters or whatever, I think that would be then everybody's like, yeah, no, nice soft bed. I'm all good. I can get up, take 3 steps, start frying bacon, whatever.
Totally. I mean, it's like we're talking about here. There's a use case for everything. I think, again, it has to start with that propensity to outdoors. If you hate the outdoors, you're not going to love camping or RVing or whatever. I mean, you could sit inside the RV and watch movies all day, I guess. But, some people if it's raining, for some people it sucks. Some people don't mind at all. So, RVing does provide the creature comforts of home for sure. And also I would say the freedom and flexibility to kind of go at your own schedule, right? Like, yes, you can do that, backcountry camping, but obviously you have more range in terms of what you can do with that. So I would say those are the 2 other benefits, but it really has to start for all of us with that love of nature.
Yeah, agreed. Some of the misconceptions that you run into, okay. So the first one that immediately pops to mind for me is RVs are expensive.
Yeah. And, the reality is that RVs can be expensive. Let's be honest. This is discretionary income. Some of these RVs go up to, as I said at the beginning here, like $500,000. That's very rare that people are going to be in that segment. I know.
Pocket change. Yeah.
Yeah, totally. Right. Yeah. Anytime. Let's buy 2. Look, I mean, the way I would phrase it is that we see entry level RVs starting at $10,000. Those are like tent trailers. I think that is, if you are a tent camper and this is something you did as a couple for ages, but now you have 2 kids and it's just getting a little too difficult, that's maybe your next stage. But you'll still live in suburbia and park it in your driveway, et cetera, et cetera. It ranges from there. But the average RV is amortized, so a lot of them are amortized over 20 years. Which means like a $40,000 unit is like $300 a month or under that. So, it is relative. It's affordable relative to everything else. So, I don't know if you guys have looked at airline prices lately or hotels. Like,
not for a long time, but yeah, man.
Wow. Yeah, it's crazy. And then I've had some anecdotally some people talk to me about going to Disneyland with the family and how much that costs and so on and so forth. And we've done some studies through Go RVing, and I won't quote a whole bunch of stats of it's 70% cheaper and this and that. I mean, again, everything is relative. I think the reality with RVing is there is an RV for everyone and every budget. You just have to look carefully at what you need out of a floor plan. But certainly that can be a misconception. I would definitely agree with that. What's your other one? What else like comes to top of mind for you guys?
Well, the next one is almost a joke. Everybody's heard the. So I heard a bunch of swearing at the campsite last night. I'm sure it was somebody parking an RV.
We've experienced that personally. not us, but next to us.
Next to us, yes, and it was hilarious at the same time. It was just terrifying. Like, oh, he's gonna knock the tree down, man. But I make the assumption that, again, technology being what it is, it's come miles with cameras and being able to see in the dark and all that sort of jazz. Not somebody back there screaming, "No, left, your other left, you idiot."
Well, it's funny that still does exist because I'm thinking of myself and my wife. But yeah, no, it's funny. Even with all this tech, it's we offer free marriage counseling at gorv.ca, by the way. But no, I mean. Look, everyone's seen it. Pulling into a campground at nighttime after a long day drive and like being hungry and whatever is stressful. No matter, you can throw all the sort of kit that you want in the world and all the cameras, it's still going to create some issues potentially. I will say it's gotten a lot easier for sure, obviously with the advent of calendars, and it really comes down to planning in that regard. I think the biggest thing that you can have as an RVer in your plus column is a plan. And then if you have a backup plan for that plan, then that's a good plan to have. So it's when you're rushed and it's when you're kind of like scrambling to do stuff that mistakes are made, and somebody takes out a tree inadvertently in a campground or something like that. So yeah, it's you just got to do it carefully. You just got to have that plan.
Oh, yeah, and just back to the cost for a second. So you mentioned they amortize the cost over 20 years, you said?
Yeah, like up to 20 years. And I don't know what all the financial guys are doing now, but I know it's around 20 years or up to 20 years. Yeah.
Well, and is that because you anticipate that the RV will last for 20 years?
No, it's just the way financing works. So it's the same as a house. It's like, it's amortized over that period of time. And some people do keep them for that period of time. Obviously, warranties, go and you can extend them and whatever else. And I think a lot of people do pass them on. There's a big secondhand market. That's why there's over 2 million in Canada right now. But it's life use depends on what your use for it is, or its lifespan depends on what your use is, I should say. If you take park models, which is like a segment that, we would consider RVing and is very much so, is the seasonal segment. And park models, there's definitely people that own those for 15 or 20 years and then fix them up as they kind of go along. Some of the travel trailers that you were talking about at the beginning, I think, those maybe could be put out to pasture. But yeah, that's the way it works. And ultimately, the banks are pretty competitive with their rates right now. And yeah, I mean, you have to factor in the other costs. So that's what we want people to do. When we have like an affordability calculator on our site where you can kind of go in and punch in your budget, but what we want to remind people of is, maintenance costs, storage, and then, your running costs and things like that. So you have to make sure that that's all kind of put into the budget overall, because that is part of what we talk about with affordability and value.
Well, and there is the option just to rent one, right? So it's not, you don't have to own your own.
No, and it's an option that I completely encourage. Like, we're here to educate and inform, inspire, I guess, as well. Well, very much so. But I when I'm asked the question, like, well, how do I decide? Like, there are certain things like you got to look at. Do you want to tow it? Do you want to drive it? How big does it need to be? What's your budget? What can you fit in your driveway? Where will you store it? There's all these critical questions. The number one thing people should actually do is go rent one. You're totally right, Pamela. Like, I mean, just go rent one and make sure that it's right for you and your family. We know that the majority of people that are purchasing now are trying before they buy. And that could be renting through, one of the peer-to-peer companies or through an RV dealer, which we always recommend. But yeah, going through a dealer and renting first, great way to go.
So there are peer-to-peer, like almost like
Like an
Airbnb
Airbnb
my
kind of.
RV.
Yeah. So there's like, the sort of Airbnb world has come into RVing. It's definitely something that's an option. We do encourage people to take a close look, like if they're doing this, to make sure that the insurance is good and that it's covered by the financial company and whatever else. And I'm not saying that's not the case. Often it is. It's all good, but definitely something to look out for. That said, could be a great option if everything's in order. Why not? This is a great way also for owners to offset the cost of RVing when they're not actually using their units. I mean, what's better than actually when you actually have downtime, you're kind of, recouping some of the cost of what it would be to sit in your driveway or wherever. But again, you just got to check all that out with an RV dealer or the insurance.
So I was looking at things like, I did a chat GPS or GPT thing. And one of the things that they came up with, as a complaint, which I thought was yes and no, that they're like hotels on wheels. Okay, you can have that. You can have all those amenities,
Yeah,
or not. Like it's kind of there are all those options, and it's the thing I keep going back to is it's about the experience. It's about getting out in nature, man. Like I don't even care if it means it's all glampy. Okay. I mean, I do like to be that stinky guy 7 days in. I that's totally my jam. But
listen, man, I told you I drove across the country in an RV with 3 other dudes, so I can tell you by the time I got out of there, it was not pretty. So
unpleasant.
I'm with you.
I'm just gonna solder my nostrils closed. Yeah.
I mean, I see where you're going, Tim. I look, I agree. It's like anything in life. It's like if you want to take a vacation and go 5-star and, like have the gourmet, whatever, the same food you have at home, then fair enough. But if you want to eat the local food and go to a local restaurant and, go wander around the streets and, good on you. It depends on, I'm not going to judge, I happen to be the latter. But that's me. And I think I'm the same by the sounds of it with you. It's like, I just want to kind of get out in nature. I don't, the creature comforts are great in terms of having a nice bed to sleep on or whatever, the shower. I mean, campgrounds have all got showers and, an outdoor shower is good enough for me personally. It's all about that freedom and flexibility. That's what I love is like, you know what? We don't love this situation. Let's move this situation and go to another situation. Let's go check that out, or let's go do that activity over there. Let's call an audible. And I think that's what it affords you the ability to do, especially with some of these smaller, less glampy units that, you can really do overland, like you were saying.
Cool. Another thing that had occurred to me was sort of the environmental cost of RVs. Because again, old guy, old days, that big old rickety thing spewing smoke out the back, which isn't the case anymore. How have they improved substantially with their
with their emissions and things like that? Yeah. I mean, I mentioned at the beginning kind of the advent, our advent in the RV industry of batteries, and obviously there's a range issue there, but batteries are coming in to support engines and hybrids and things like that. A couple things I would say, and I'm not going to like roll the banner here because I think that for me, the environment is hugely important. It's something from Go RV in Canada that's personal to me that I want to encourage as much environmental sustainability as possible. I believe that that's down to the individual camper and RVer and like the footprint that we leave behind. To me, that's the more important factor, or like the impacting area. But I will say in terms of emissions and things like that, to answer, like the vehicles, most 80% of RVs are towed. And the tow vehicles are now more efficient. So the engines have gotten, better on emissions, and they've gotten more efficient in terms of their sort of ability. And then for things like the bigger motorhomes, obviously those engines have altered, but they're always going to have somewhat of an impact. But then if you compare that impact to taking a flight from Toronto to Vancouver, how much environmental impact is that? I mean, I think everything's kind of relative. And again, I'm not trying to sell that. I think that we have to like keep that in mind.
Yeah, no, that's valid. Something you mentioned earlier about your website. I spent a ton of time on it, just going, holy crap, look at all this stuff. Give me a brief, because it's huge. Give me a
Yeah.
brief idea of all the resources that you have on the website.
Yeah, totally. And thanks. Like we just launched our new site. We're really happy. We are our main stay here is GoRVing.ca. That's why we're here to inform and help inspire. So there are inspirational factors. There's a lot of video content on there that's like, where can I go? Here are some trip guides for me. I mean, I think for me as a first time RVer, it was kind of like, okay, so where do I go for 7 days? Like, give me some inspiration. And so we've done a lot of that. We've done a lot of trip guides and a lot of sort of content about here's how you go about it. But then there's the educational component, which is really like, so if I want to get into this, like Pamela, to your point, like the try before you buy, the questions you should ask your dealer, the questions, the types of dealers that you know you should be approaching, where you can approach them, etc. Directories for all that. And then going further down the sort of rabbit hole is like what we would call like the avid RV or the expert section, which is more like, you know, people swapping notes on how they RV and how to, you know, tips and tricks and hacks for RVing and, you know, the best, most efficient way possible. And our community is definitely a vocal one. We're very fortunate, like both through both social and on the site. RVers are avid about it, and I think it's neat to see the exchange of information. But again, just like that kind of exchange to help people out. So yeah, in a nutshell, Go RVing Canada is kind of set up in those sort of 3 tiers: one to inspire, one for like the first timer, and then one more for the expert on getting on the road.
Cool. Well, and talking about your socials, we follow you on Instagram, and I was quite surprised at, and often following off, you know, like somebody who made a comment on one of your posts or whatever, follow off on them. And I know you said, I think 55 is the average age now.
Yeah.
I was surprised at how much younger a lot of those commenters were. It was like, holy crap, I had no idea.
I think it seems it's crazy. It seems like it's getting younger and younger, and I'm trying to keep up with it. Honestly, I mean, it's kind of crazy for me to say, but yeah, we sort of do these check-ins and find out who is our audience now and what are they saying and what are they about. And typically, it's our audience that tells us what they want. So you know, as I said, they're pretty vocal about it. But I think for me, the largest thing I'm seeing is kind of that inspo, what I would call the inspo gap, which is really like inspire me, like kind of tell me something that's off the beaten path where I can go see this or do that, and encourage me into an activity that maybe I haven't thought about before or something along those lines. And I think that, you know, people want that inspiration of like where to go, what to do, etc. Maybe that's just the norm now in social media, is kind of people, you know, like drive there.
Others.
So yeah, that's it.
Yeah. Well, yes. I mean, definitely in my stinky 7 days in the backcountry community, that's exactly what the sort of
going back to that. I love it.
Is, right?
Yeah, it's not just food pictures anymore.
It's not just food pictures anymore.
It's not, right? And that's honestly, Pamela, that's where it started. It was all the recipes and things like that. And now it's just like, it's increased from that so much. There's so much content out there, so much to consume. As I kind of said to you guys at the beginning, I love what we do here. The fact that we are sort of this, you know, not-for-profit and brand agnostic means that we can be real about what it means to be RVing, what it means to be outdoors. And, you know, we're not just going to encourage anyone just to do that. We think there's benefits of getting outdoors for mental health, for family connection. You know, all of this is like, this is proven stuff. It comes through a lot of our advertising, like with Wildhood, where we're encouraging the freedom to discover, you know, to kind of quote unquote break the rules that we were put into this mold as, right, and sort of be free, be out in nature, and that seems to resonate really well with the audience that we want to be working with. We're trying to, you know, have those moments of connections with Canadians, and I think we're not to talk anything about what's going on right now, but it feels kind of COVID-esque to me in a bit of a way. We saw a big uptick, obviously, during COVID, as the camping industry as a whole did. Everybody was like, "Oh my God, what am I going to do?" I see that now. It's like, 75% of Canadians last year decided they were going to stay in country for their vacation, for their summer holidays. What are they going to do this year? I think it's going to be 85, I'm guessing, based on what's happening. So, the camping industry, the campgrounds and RVing industry better be ready, because I think Canadians are going to want to get outdoors. They're certainly not going to be happy just to stay in the city or whatever. So, it's good. I think let's explore what we have in our own backyard, as we keep saying, and we fully stand by it.
Yeah.
Our backyard is just awesome. So, yeah, we're so lucky.
We are very much lucky. Yeah. Yeah. And agreed. It's kind of poopy that people can't necessarily do the things that they want to do, or they choose not to for other reasons. It means they get out in nature. Okay. I'm down with that.
That's good.
Right.
Totally. Yeah.
Cool.
All right. So if you're feeling super pumped now about going RVing, what might be some of the best tips that you have for somebody that's just brand new?
Yeah, 'tis the season, right? Like, we're all looking outdoors and can't wait for this to break. But as I said earlier, like, plan. The first thing is to plan. So, use GoRVing.ca as your resource. There's a directory there for rental or own, whatever you prefer. But all the dealers there have been, kind of sanctioned. They're RVDA approved dealers in Canada. Start there and look at booking, your trip, the kind of unit you need for the size of family you have, and then figure out, get some inspiration from us, or talk to, fellow RVers or into our community, and find out kind of like the campgrounds you want to go to. And, like anything else, we've been talking about how it's going to get super busy. So I would just get ahead of it now and start to plan it out, but definitely have that plan put together, pick out your dates, get to that dealer, and then the rest will kind of come together about what to pack and what to bring, etc. There's lots of stuff like that we have available for people, but the first thing is get that plan in order.
Yeah,
and just get out there and have a great time. I mean, come on, this is it. Like, get out into nature and feel the peace with your friends and family. That's all I can say.
That works. That pretty much covers it. So all right,
awesome, guys. Thanks so much for having me.
Oh, thanks for coming, Chris.
I really appreciate it.
I'll just kind of do our outro, and then
sure.
That's a wrap.
We're done.
That's it for us today. Thank you so much to Chris from Go RVing for joining us and sharing all that information about RVing. And please do reach out to them. What's the best way to reach you, Chris? Or just go to the website?
Yeah, go to the website, gorving.ca, or through our social channels, Go RVing Canada.
Awesome. And then feel free to reach out to us anytime. We're on Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, X,
all the things,
and Blue Sky. And reach out to us anytime by email if you'd like. Our email is hi@supergoodcamping.com. That's hi@supergoodcamping.com. And we'll talk to you again soon. Bye.
Bye.
Bye. Thanks, guys.